It's the Two Strange Men.
Okay, Two Strange Men. My name's Carl, and that is Tom over there. I'm not even going to let him introduce himself.
I'm still gone. The siren.
Yeah.
I'm still in the siren's care. She's stroking my hair.
Yeah, if you didn't listen last week, shame on you. But don't worry, it's okay. I'm glad you're here now. But last week, I had to show that Tom was away, and I did this through enacting a siren abduction.
The medium of storytelling, folks.
Yeah.
Get it all here.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, like, I don't want to break the illusion. He was actually abducted, and there is a Santa Claus.
Yeah, and I'm a different man. So, like, if I see melancholy this week, I've seen things, Carl.
Yeah.
And not just the film about that. I've been there.
Yeah.
Been to the personification of hell.
Yeah, yeah. Good stuff, good stuff. Okay, so with that in mind, we are talking about a film today that we've both watched. What's that film?
So it's Event Horizon, and I'm really glad we watched it because it's something that's been on my list for, I would say, years. And I didn't know much about it. I just knew, like, whenever I, like, you know, designing lessons and we talk about practical effects, it always comes up.
Yeah.
So it's always been on my list, and I can see why. But yeah, Event Horizon this week, and I have some feelings and some thoughts and some scathing nightmares for the rest of time.
I mean, like, this is the thing. Like, I don't think this film is scary.
Right, in the traditional sense of boo, I'm scared. No, has a few moments where it tries to make you, but as an idea, it's terrifying.
Okay.
The idea that, like, your fears can be manifested into a real world situation, like the whole fire bit at the end was insane.
Yeah. The fire bit at the end, help me out. Like, what happens right at the end? Like,
so
everything just is set on fire.
Lawrence Fishburne's character is, like, reliving the person, and he's like, "You're not real," and then it turns out to be Dr. Keir again, and he's all, like, bloody and cut up, and I'm like, that's some real messed up. The film's pretty metal.
Yeah.
It's pretty
well,
metal.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it is definitely metal. Okay, so let's before we jump into it, because there's loads to talk about. You know,
we do this all the time. We're going to do a detailed analysis this time, and we go straight in.
We're not actually going to do much of a detailed analysis with this film. You really don't need it. Okay, but what's good about this film, and I guess what ends up helping with marketing and stuff like that, is the idea that this film has sort of a rich sort of like behind the scenes sort of story to it. And I hope, like, we'll be able to review this film to a certain extent, but also we'll be able to look at some of this, because it's really interesting factoids, to be honest with you. And if anything, I think that a lot of people's appreciation for this film is in a forgiving nature because of all of the stuff that's happened in the background and stuff, you know. But anyway, it's a from a production, like a practical effects situation. It's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, some of the best practical effects that I've seen in a late 90s film.
Yeah,
it's got that like cool 90s jank sci-fi aesthetic.
Yeah,
it's got the kind of, you know, you can really tell it was, you know, the late 90s and that kind of bridging just before the Matrix, that kind of, you know, that metallic kind of feel where it's definitely sci-fi, but it feels more grounded.
Yeah.
And then it has those really nice horror moments, almost Hellraiser-esque horror moments. And the two genres are merged quite well.
Yeah.
And the practical effects really sell it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's the standout.
Yeah.
There are elements to it that I think are less convincing, but the practical and visual effects really sell the idea of kind of being stranded alone in this thing, and, you know, because really the gate is a personification of hell, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that's really sold, particularly like the horror visuals of the last kind of 20 minutes. And what I like is it's a shorter film.
Yeah.
And no,
we love those.
But it doesn't try and over egg the pudding with crazy exposition.
So, yeah, that's it. Yeah,
and it's just like that. Here's that film. Here's the concept. Let's just buckle in and have a go. And a lot of the films that we've, like, reviewed.
Yeah.
I haven't disliked any of them.
Yeah.
I have got bored at times though with almost all of them, including like the Substance and Mad God. There's been elements I'm like, this sequence is just going on for
Yeah.
too long. There was not a single sequence where I felt that it went on for too long. I was buckled in for the whole hour 30.
It could have gone longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked the pace, but also it's kind of like, oh, I'd love a sequel. Or a TV show, or just something within the law that kind of expands on it. But I thought the length was perfect for what they tried to do.
Yeah. Okay, so story. Let's get it out there real quick. Okay, so there is a ship called the Event Horizon. Okay, and within this ship, obviously it's in the future, guys. Okay, there's no spaceships. All right. So they have been able to create a hyperlight drive, like a warp drive,
like a
sort
gravity
of thing.
field drive where they fold space.
Yeah, that's how it's described. And there's that very famous scene where the guy who developed this ship is telling like this new crew that's going to try and find the ship that it folds space, and so he gets a piece of paper, 2 pieces of paper, which just happens to be a pin-up, a paper-based pin-up thing. I'll go into that in a minute. And he puts 2 holes through it, and then he folds the paper together, and he puts a pen through it. And that's famously, like, if you've seen Thor: Love and Thunder, it's actually like it's doing an homage to Event Horizon and stuff, which came out of nowhere, really, which is quite interesting. But anyway. So there's this new ship, okay, and it's gone missing. It's just at the outskirts of our solar system, and they've enacted this like warp drive capable ship, and it's gone missing. Yeah. And so what they need to do then, the creator of that ship, the guy who engineered it all and stuff like that, has got a group of people together, like a set of like blue collar workers type people like you get in Alien and other films like that have to then go and rescue the ship. Yeah. What they find when they eventually get to the Event Horizon, that ship, is that everyone's gone missing. There's no one on the ship, and they look through logs and stuff like that, and they can see that people have gone absolutely fucking insane, and they're speaking in like Latin and stuff like that, saying "we visited hell" and stuff like that. And basically, they immediately nope out. They want to get the fuck off the ship, but they can't. The creator of the ship then gets possessed and goes on a rampage, basically showing people their deepest, darkest fears and knocking them off one by one, killing them all. And so essentially what it ends up being is that the captain, Lawrence Fishburne, finds a way to save some of the characters and I guess send them off into an escape pod or something like that. And that's pretty much the end of the film. And it's very much a haunted house in space sort of thing. It's like Poltergeist, but it's got that extra layer to it where in Poltergeist you could leave the house, but because it's in space, you can't.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why the director, Paul W.S. Anderson, not Paul Thomas Anderson, who directed Magnolia and other such films like that. Paul W.S. Anderson, the Resident Evil guy. That's one of the reasons why he liked the script and stuff. Yeah. There's some other like elements to it to take into account when it comes to like why he chose the script, etc. But essentially, like, although this film has been described as being a derivative sort of like horror film, it grabs from all sorts of different things. Like, for example, there is a scene that's very reminiscent of The Shining, and like Sam Neill, the main the guy that puts them on the journey, etc. He very much plays a Jack Torrance sort of character in it, like Jack Nicholson. But yeah, he wanted to do something a little bit different, so he didn't want to do it like Aliens, okay? But I don't care. It's very much like Aliens, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Is it? And the way they introduce the crew and like everyone's got their own specified like thing. it's very much like that. But I like that. I don't mind when films take from different things and use it in a different story, because like filmmaking and writing and just creative in general, it's this idea of standing on the shoulder of giants.
Yeah.
So yeah, is it similar? Absolutely. Does it sometimes feel like it's too similar? Yes. But it's created a really interesting story. And like I said, I wasn't bored at any points. No. Like, because it was selectively taken. It wasn't just like, we're going to redo this whole thing. I like that element, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to take this element because it works for the story that I'm doing. And I loved that, and I feel like it makes it a more comprehensive film. So I don't mind that it's similar to these.
I don't mind. But what I'm trying to get at with that is that, you know, despite now kind of in a way being described as Anderson's best work, it was a bomb back in 1997. And it made less than half of its budget and received mediocre reviews. Now, that one of the reasons why it received such poor reviews from critics would be the idea that it's kind of derivative. It's like, it's nothing new here, so you don't have to watch it and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm in agreement. I quite like something that is derivative, and I think now that we're at this sort of stage where, like, we've discussed that idea of like metamodernism that tries to pay homage to things and use things in a different way and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, it's perfectly reasonable.
I feel like if it came out now, the critics would be like, would be a lot more favourable to it.
Yeah. I mean, like, we're in a position now where the landscape is totally changed, and it's because of films like this that have come out that have influenced things as we move forward. Yeah. You know,
if it's not a Marvel movie, The Guardian's giving it 5. Like, let's just place our eggs in the basket.
Yeah, Martin Scorsese loved it. I loved it. There wasn't one fucking cape.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, so there's loads to talk about, isn't there?
Yeah.
But I mean, one thing that we really have sort of like honed in on straight away is the idea of like the production design, you know. And I kept watching the film, and I was like blown away with the amount of different sets that there are.
Can I tell you the one thing that I just can't get out of my head is that chair that Lawrence Fishburne sits in, that's kind of like hanging from the ceiling. It looks a little bit like our podcast pod arms. And every now and again when he's sat there, you can see it wobbling with the rest of the set, and I'm just like, that's amazing. That's absolutely incredible.
I mean, it was like so unnecessary. Like,
I love it.
Yeah, like, we need to have this. We need to have like a fucking hanging chair, all right? I don't care if it costs $15,000. I want it now. And they only use it for 2 shots, don't they? And it's quite cool, like how they've got that juxtaposition where, you know, they reveal the hero in that first shot with him, and then separate to that, they reveal Sam Neill when he's taking his eyes out because he's possessed. Really cool. Like, but like, that's just one thing in a massive like basket full of different little bits of wow moments.
Yeah, it's
just
chock
with
full.
the set, just the set alone. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was all in studios in the UK.
But both,
as well.
but both spaceships felt, sometimes when you're watching a sci-fi and they're going from spaceship to spaceship, they're not really distinct.
Yeah.
It's just metal walls. But I could tell when they were in one spaceship, and I could tell when they were in the Event Horizon.
Yeah.
Like the Lewis and Clark, was it Lewis and Clark?
It was the Lewis and Clark, yeah.
And the Event Horizon felt so dynamically different.
Yeah.
So, and it felt a treat to go from one to the other.
Yeah.
And I kind of was like, I wish in this universe we had more of the spaceships and saw the space stations and all of the other stuff, because it was just a really cool like design.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, it's really cool like sci-fi, and then suddenly like, oh, it's also a really competently designed horror film with really competent practical effects.
Yeah, absolutely.
That scene where the doctor, because there seemed to be 2 doctors, and that's a bit I was confused about. There's the woman doctor, and then there was the male doctor, and
So Jason Isaacs' character, who everyone will remember as from Harry Potter, who was he?
Oh, He was in the new ones, wasn't he?
Like Malfoy. Is it Malfoy? I don't know him.
Oh,
The long
Malfoy's dad.
Malfoy's dad. Yeah.
Yeah,
The guy with the long blonde hair that owns
Lucian.
Dobby. Lucian Malfoy.
Yeah.
Whatever. I've only seen it once.
Oh,
But
yeah, he is.
that's
He is,
Jason Isaacs. Yeah. So what was I saying? So he was trauma specifically.
Oh, yes,
So
yeah.
he was kind of like the emergency medical technician, right?
Yeah.
And then the other woman was kind of like, I guess, like medical officer. I guess. A little bit different.
And that scene where the way they went back into his scar and then they just kind of opened him up, and he was like hanging up there and all of his like incredible work. Like,
Yeah, it was incredible
whoever
work,
made that. There was only one practical sequence where I thought that looks naff.
What's that?
Do you want to guess?
Um,
And it's to do with the other medical officer.
Oh, okay. So, the only real sort of like fear sequence she had was like they kept showing her like kid who had a disability, and then they showed his like dodgy legs.
No, so it was after that.
Okay.
When she went to go and chase him,
Yeah.
and she fell off the balcony.
Yeah.
We got like a Benji level like puppet sequence where she quite clearly just changed into a ragdoll.
Yes.
And then it hit the ground, and I was just like,
Oh God.
of all the strong like practical effects, why does that look so bad?
The thing is, though, like, it's been like a lot of this film. I don't know why, but I've watched it like 3 times now, and it gets erased from my memory. Okay, but right after watching this film, I ended up watching part of Jean-Claude Van Damme's film Cyborg. Okay,
I've never seen it.
Well, literally, it's like a post-apocalyptic world and stuff like that. We're not going to go into it, but there's a shot where they obviously use a dummy, and I laughed out loud at how bad it was. It's amazing how bad it was. If anyone doesn't know, Tom's making a reference to a film called Benji, where a little dog. It's all about a little dog. It's an amazing film from my childhood. But anyway, this little dog is trying to escape from this giant wolf, and the giant wolf is tricked into falling off a cliff. And the people who made the film literally just threw, like, I'm assuming like a stuffed wolf, but it looks very real, despite the fact that they're saying that no wolves were harmed.
The trajectory of the throw.
I know, it's
kills me off because it's like instead of going poo, it's like flying through the air.
Someone's hoofed it, like absolutely yeeted it, as the kids would say.
I feel like the stuffing is nothing but air because that thing like a superhero launch.
Yeah, I love the idea of these sort of things. It's like as soon as you like succumb to gravity and you're off of a cliff or something like that, all of your joints and limbs stop working, and so you're just flailing around,
yeeted in the air as well. You do, like you fall off
immediate ragdoll.
You go up like 75 degrees and then you fall.
Oh, I do remember it. And she actually gets, when she's falling down into that chamber, she actually hits the side, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She does like a flip. Or something.
and you can tell it's padding.
Yeah.
That's hitting because, and they put like a really bad crunch noise.
Yeah.
But like the stuffing just goes like that, like in and then out again, and I'm like, that's not how skin and muscle behave. Like.
Yeah, but no, I mean, like, the practical effects on it were really, really good. And it actually created some issues on set. Say, for example, part of the set at one point in time burnt down because of all of the fire effects that they were doing.
Wow.
Which is quite interesting, I found. But yeah, I mean, it was built over multiple studio lots in the UK. Had obviously, like, for the time, I guess, like, quite a fairly large budget, but it was about like 90 million or something like that. I can't remember in my notes where that is. But yeah, it's we've been talking about the idea that it is a film that seems short for what it is, and you'd like an extension. But that's generally down to the story that, you know, gets bandied around with this film when it comes up in people's thoughts again. Is the idea that the original cut was unwieldy, quite confusing, but also very, very gory, like full-on torture scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Paramount executives basically told Paul to like cut down loads. And so like the idea was that eventually there'd be chance for a director's cut.
Oh, okay.
But this is the weird thing, okay? This is why this film has this sort of like cult following to it. Is the fact that it's not that like it's not that it's deleted footage was like just left in a warehouse or lost or something like that. They stored the footage for this film in a Transylvanian salt mine.
Come again?
That's it. Like, you know, where Dracula's meant to live. Like, the Hollywood people decided for a film that was primarily like made in the UK in studios, are going to ship all of the stuff to a Transylvanian salt mine and store it there. And it had become so degraded because of where it was stored that essentially you're never going to get a director's cut. There's a possibility that there is a VHS version that one of the executive producers was able to find, but that hasn't seen the light of day at this point in time. So yeah, like it's got this kind of cult following because it's like you go like, oh, a film about hell, and there's like fire on the set, and you know the footage was lost. It's a truly cursed film. You've got to see this cursed film. There was like a period of time where it was kind of like coming back into public consciousness and stuff like that, and it's just because of like the funny stories around it and stuff. But then I mean I don't know, like I like the film, I like everything about it, but I do feel like you look at it with rose tinted glasses and stuff, and it's just it's mainly just the genre, okay? Because like I absolutely love Alien, you know me, I fucking love Alien. Okay?
Any chance you get,
I will talk to students about Alien. It's like every
you got a female character in your film, let's talk about Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a rom-com about like a subservient woman. I'm like, well, I mean,
have you
like,
seen
have you thought of doing it a bit more Sigourney Weaver like? But yeah. So, what am I saying? It's got so many bits that are so similar to Alien, okay? But then they're switching out a xenomorph, which Alien is pretty much like a monster in the house in space. Yeah? It's very much like, say, Texas Chainsaw Massacre or anything like that, you know, where you've just got this sort of like lumbering sort of like creature that's, you know, going through a house and taking out people one by one. You know, many teen slasher flicks have been like that and stuff like that. And what Alien does is it sets it in space, and you've got xenomorphs instead of anything else. And what this film is pretty much, it's like you watch it and it very much feels like, because of the way in which, like, you know, you've switched out Sigourney Weaver's character for Lawrence Fishburne, and you've got all of these other characters, and they've got it's that idea of like there's two classes of people. There is the blue collar workers, you know, that like to pin up porn on their walls, even though this is like well into the future, or supposed future, and everyone's still got paper and they've got porn mags. Like, those are vintage. They should be in a museum. Yeah. Those vintage.
I was thinking that. I was like, don't put all in that. It's probably worth like £15,000.
Absolutely. But at the same time, though, in the original Alien, like there's a scene where the android, when he's found out to be an android, Ian Holm, you know, Bilbo Baggins, etc. He's beaten on Sigourney Weaver with a rolled up porn mag. Or at least a magazine, and around him is like pin-up pictures of porn and stuff like that as he's doing it. So like even that element that I'm going, that's a bit weird. Why are there porn in the future? That's copied from something else.
It's just a trapping of the time, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because now if we were to make a sci-fi, and we wanted a character to be, boisterous and he's into women and he's lads. They'd have a holodeck where they're just getting sucked off by like some alien women, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. They've yet to make that film.
I mean, they do that a lot in.
It's a running joke in the Orville.
That's
isn't
it.
it?
The Orville, yeah.
And it's a running joke with any sort of like, I guess like Star Trek now and like Star Trek podcasts and stuff like that is to basically say like, Commander Riker is just pretty much just in there spooging like, and like you'd hate to be on the you'd hate to be on the holodeck cleanup crew detail, know. You'd hope it was just like sucked out into the vacuum of space, but then it might impregnate some sort of space.
There's an episode in that. There is an episode in that, isn't there? It's just like they all get there, like 500 like space creatures. Oh, hi, Dad.
They've all got Will Riker's face.
Yeah.
So yeah, what was I fucking saying? I'm just talking about Star Trek now. What was my point I was leading up to? What was I talking about?
You were talking about Alien.
Yeah. But yeah, okay, so like you're swapping out xenomorphs for basically like it's that haunted house element where it's like, let's see our deepest fears. And
it's a bit more on the nose, isn't it? Because Alien is that. It's this idea of isolation and the fear of not being able to get out. And instead of like creating a monster for it, they've gone, well, fear itself is fear.
Yeah, exactly.
And personified it into the human experience.
But my problem is, right, that the original idea for the film is very much like a derivative thing of Alien, okay? And I'm not saying that this film should be more like Alien-like, okay? Because it is that already. And I'm not saying that he did the wrong thing. It's just I think it's a personal taste thing with the whole haunted house. I can't get on it. Do you know what I mean? Like if this was people in a haunted mansion and they were seeing their fears and stuff like that, again, it's like I'm not that interested in that story. I mean, that's like from a bygone era, isn't it? Like that's like Victorian horror, I guess. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I do think the space element makes that a really interesting concept.
Yeah, it's a unique concept
because like if you have to face your fear and there's no possible way out of getting out, I think that is a much more compelling. Where these haunted house type films, and they're like, he's compelled to open the door. Why is he compelled to open the door? Just go home.
Well, I mean, like with this one, it was a bit more like forceful. It's like Sam Neill is pretty much just possessed at this point in time by it in a shining sort of way.
I have a question for somebody that's watched it 3 times. I know it seeps out of your memory as soon as you watch it.
Absolutely. I think it's part of the curse.
Like you have like Event Horizon dementia. But what I didn't understand, so his wife killed himself.
Killed herself.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not judging.
Yeah.
I don't know what pronouns are.
Space pronouns.
Yeah. His wife killed herself by like slitting her wrists.
Because, I mean, this is one thing I can't abide. It's like, because Sam Neill's character was away from home too much.
Yeah.
Not good enough. But anyway, carry on.
You're weak.
Exactly. What the fuck is that?
Yeah,
Just drink, for God's sake.
Do what the rest of us do and take recreational drugs.
I mean, he is literally like Mr. Moneybags. He can create a ship. Like, he must be raking it in. Absolutely raking it in.
She could buy a little, like, different version of him, couldn't she?
He could create for her some sort of interdimensional doorway to have sex with.
Yeah, because that's what we want.
Or have, like, conversations with. I don't know what women want. I don't know.
Who knows? This is Two Strange Men. Not too strange. Well, we weren't the wise men.
Not two strange men who understand women, okay? That's too long, all right?
We ain't got time for that.
Absolutely.
So, but then every sequence that she's in, she hasn't got eyes. Have I missed something? Like, was that...
She does have eyes. She does have eyes in the flashback when he's like, "Oh, please, no, don't do it," and she's filling up the bath.
But then, so when you first see her, she's not got eyes.
Yeah.
And then when you see her in the flashback, she's got eyes for like 2 seconds, then she's dead, and she ain't got eyes again.
Yeah.
She can gouge her eyes out. Why has she got eyes?
So, I mean, like, I think it's more of a visual thing, and it's one of those films, particularly because it's like Paul Anderson, who like just does mainly computer game remakes that people forget instantly. Like, there's not a lot of depth with this. This film has more depth than the normal Paul W.S. Anderson film, but like anyone will tell you, like, yeah, those sort of films, he's not like really sort of focused on the dialogue and the character development and stuff like that. And so like it's there, and really all that has been is to kind of set up the deaths. Is like everyone kind of having a backstory and stuff like that, yeah. And in fact, actually, there's some of them that kind of don't get a backstory.
Yeah.
So we mentioned Jason Isaacs, and he had a scar on his chest,
Yeah.
and that actually he was meant to have his own flashback scene where he was scared of people doing surgery on him, and then Sam Neill's character, who's possessed and stuff like that, actually does surgery on him and stuff. But you kind of miss that. But like that's all I'm saying is basically like, okay, we got to have a scene at the start where the lady sees her kid, and we know that she cares about her kid, and yeah, like, so then she can have a flashback. Oh, she can have like a scary moment where the kid's involved.
And I get all that.
Yeah.
But like, what the eyes?
But the eyes, I mean, like, he gouged his eyes out.
Yeah.
He gouged his eyes out, like, because much like, you know, we've been talking about H.P. Lovecraft and stuff like that, the things I have seen are so scary that I can't possibly have fucking eyes anymore. He even said to them, it's like, oh, where we're going, we don't have eyes. Or we don't need eyes.
I just...
But like,
it just bothers me.
But no, but okay, so like my bother with it, and I'll go back to my whole point of like the haunted house thing, is that you have an opportunity to make a film that really explores a parallel universe that's meant to be resembling very much similar to like the setting of Warhammer 40,000 or 40k, whatever you want to call it, is like you're going through a parallel dimension, but you are entering chaos. You're opening up a Pandora's box, and you're living in a world then at that moment that is pure chaos or whatever. And I don't know, like, I struggle with the mechanics of that. Do you know what I mean? Because everything has to live, and everything has to have like a general sort of like process of how they, like, what do they do when they get up in the morning, and do you know what I mean? Like, how can there be like a parallel
if everyone's
universe?
just killing each other all the time, then we're very quickly going to run out of people.
Yeah, but like, I mean, like, but maybe it's like because like, you know, it's got a consciousness, it's speaking through Sam Neill and stuff like that, and there's all of this like religious iconography and stuff like that, but like it's an entity, don't know what it is, but it feeds off like people's fears. So it's constantly, this entity that's haunting this ship is constantly feeding off the thoughts of other people, okay? And so when it first encounters people, it has a captain who can speak Latin, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that influenced all of the other sort of like religious sort of like representations and stuff like that. You know, maybe, I don't know. It's like, I got upset with the idea of them being in a parallel universe and experiencing what hell is. Why is there barbed wire there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in what world had this parallel universe, like, where chaos reigns entirely to the point where you have to pull your eyes out because it's so fucking scary? Like, where's the barbed wire come from? Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's like you said. I mean, whatever the entity is, it uses your fears against you. So it will build that reality out of what it's learning.
Yeah, and and that's what I ended up like coming to the conclusion of eventually, but for quite a while. But my problem is, right, that the script for this film by, what's his name? Give me a second. It is Philip Eisner. His version of Event Horizon was literally just a parallel universe, a chaotic parallel universe with tentacle aliens and shit like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, that's kind of what I wanted to have happen when you saw into that parallel universe. I want to know what's on the other side. I want to know how people depict these sort of things. But then I kind of feel like it's a cop out that you're basically saying, well, it's just a manifestation of people's fears and stuff like that. Because, like, I love world building. I love the idea of, like, you know, there being a scientific explanation behind stuff. That's more
And also,
difficult to do.
if it's never run into people, then there is no fears to manifest.
Absolutely. What is it? What is
So
it at that point in
It
time?
would just be a void until it interacts, and it's not interactive with anything because this is the first time something's come through it.
But then how did it manifest in the first place?
Well, this is what I'm saying. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. But like maybe it's like a like I've mentioned
It's the biggest mimic that's ever existed.
Yeah.
It's just a giant mimic.
there's an episode of Red Dwarf called Better Than Life, okay?
Yeah.
Which is pretty much a
Yeah, I'm aware of the episode.
Yeah, you're aware of the episode. And in that episode, you've got the crew of the Red Dwarf. They're on a mission, but then they wake up and what is basically told to them is that you've just been playing a virtual reality experience this entire time. And, you know, you didn't actually do well in this Red Dwarf game that you've been playing. People have got much better high scores and stuff like that, and it's kind of reflective of what they've been going through and stuff like that. But it turns out what they've actually been attacked by something called a despair squid, and so this film kind of like I kind of feel like that's the way I can get my head around it. Yeah. It's like, well, on the other side was just a despair squid.
Yeah,
you know, and that will kind of like match the idea of these tentacle aliens that like Philip Eisner, but you never get to see any of that, do you? Like, there's none of that, and so like you're left with, whoa, just people's fears, whoa, just their manifestation of what hell would look like, because the scariest thing for people is hell, and then if you're in hell, you're experiencing the most scary thing.
And this is like the shame of it, isn't it? Like in the director's cut, is there just a scene where a little tentacle flies back into the thing?
Well, actually, I actually managed to find some of the bits that were missing. Yeah, shall I go through some of these with you?
For it.
So I've already mentioned one. I mentioned the idea of Jason Isaac, who had like a scar on his chest. He had some trauma before where he went under surgery, and so he was very scared of going under surgery. And so there was a flashback for that. But anyway, what essentially happened was that, as I mentioned, lots of unused footage was lost and stuff like that. Okay, there was a few more scenes centered on the supporting characters, including James Isaac, or Oscar Isaac, even. Yeah, there we go. And there was also some other elements in regards to the main character as well. He has some flashbacks in regards to the guy that tried to kill himself, who didn't actually have a flashback himself. It was more focused on, because like he let someone die, didn't he? And that was his main fear, was the fact that he's going to let these other people die. And then the despair squid is basically like, you know,
I love how that's canon for you.
Yeah, that is now. That is. And he was like holding on to that, you know. But yeah, there's also other scenes where Peters, the doctor, the female doctor, hallucinates her son with horrible wounds on his legs, and that would also include maggots crawling over them and stuff like that.
Well, that was in there.
But there was meant to be more. There was meant to be more extended, and I didn't need that, to be honest with you. The flashback with her suicide, I kind of felt like that was expected to be a bit more bloodier, and I was right. There was meant to be extended scenes with her in the bath, etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, alongside that, there was which was interesting. It's a shame it's missing. There was a moment where, when Captain first goes into the ship, he finds a strange object floating around. He snatches it out of the air, and he finds it's a tooth with bits of gum still attached. Ugh. I thought that would be pretty cool to see that. That would be a nice sort of setup. But like, essentially, like the way in which this film starts, it's clearly missing some content there.
Yeah.
That would kind of build towards Sam Neill's character and also the captains, I kind of feel like, you actually start the film with the antagonist there. And it doesn't really go into a lot with him. And there was definitely some missing footage
I
there.
was expecting, like, he just kind of picks up the photo and size, and then that was it, really.
Yeah.
Like, we're just supposed to just know that he's grieving.
Yeah.
Um,
There was
until
meant to be a big scene right at the start where Lawrence Fishburne's character was actually doing some daring save of something that's going on, maybe like introducing the crew as a mining crew or something like that. I don't know. They were meant to be doing something. But yeah, there was this big part in it that was cut, and it's a big shame, like, because it would have set him up as a hero sort of situation, and yeah, that was missing. And I definitely think that is something that I would kind of expect in a Paul W.S. Anderson film, is that sort of like just sort of big set piece, isn't it? And it's a shame we've kind of missed that big set piece. But one thing, like a big thing, is the idea of it being more horrific. And there was loads more horror that was meant to go into this. It's very much with the barbed wire and stuff like that. It's very much like Hellraiser, isn't it? And there was meant to be a whole lot more Hellraiser shit going on. I'll just describe some of this for you. Okay, so deleted shots included female crew members who had their mouths held open by clamps, while a crazed guide performed amateur dentistry by drilling screws into their teeth. Ooh. Another unlucky chap has his legs smashed apart by steel bars and crawls away, leaving parts of them behind, while another crew member had her breasts torn off. The scene also included more cannibalism and sex, with adult performers being hired to simulate the intensity of the scene.
Because you saw a little bit of it, didn't you? Like
very briefly,
like 10 seconds of it, and it was intense. Like,
it was
even
intense.
the bit that you saw, it was like, whoa.
Yeah, but it would have been a lot longer than that. Anderson can be quoted on the commentary track by saying, "The orgiastic death scene where the crew of the Event Horizon, the original crew, basically kind of tear each other apart while fucking each other to death was originally much longer and a lot more gruesome." Now, I think another interesting sort of like insight into the film is the fact that by this point in time, 1997, Alien would have been very influential to Paul Anderson. He wanted to make something like Alien, but not copy it and stuff like that. And so with Alien, and this is something that I end up like using in my lectures and on film and stuff, is very much influenced by H.R. Giger, the Swiss artist who essentially created all of the Alien designs and stuff like that. Ridley Scott had a art background. He went to university to study art and stuff like that, and got into advertisement and then got into film. And so he was really, really into the idea of bringing art and art movement forward and stuff like that. And so he really liked the kind of fucked up psychosexual sort of like very much like cybernetic people with like
it's very sleek and very sort
very
of like,
lubed. Like, everything looks like a dick, basically. He loves making things look like a dick or a vagina, but it's not. It's machinery. Is it man? That sort of thing. But anyway, he's brought all of that into Alien. Now, with Anderson, he tried to do this as well. And so there is quite a famous set of paintings by a number of by two different artists. So there's Peter Bruegel the Elder. I love it when someone's called the Elder. We should be still doing that. Like, I'm almost 40. When will you call me Carl the Elder?
Never.
Fuck you. Anyway,
but the students already do. So.
Yeah. But like also a guy called, and I think this is the one that's perhaps more poignant, is a guy called Hieronymus Bosch. Can you just describe what the caption? What the screenshot is? I think it's part of a picture, but it's basically a surrealist painter.
So which one?
The lower one. Hieronymus Bosch.
So it is a bird-like creature swallowing a man with a cherry on his bottom, and the bird-like creature has a cauldron for a hat. It looks a little bit like an Egyptian god.
Yeah.
And it's bird-like creatures.
It looks like Horus kind of like swallowing someone
chowing down.
Who's farting smoke.
Yeah. Well, it looks like a cherry, and then some birds are coming off it. So I feel like this guy's been eating birds, and the bird's like, I'm not having this. You're coming in my stomach this time.
Yeah, I mean, but look, that's definitely... Yeah, the birds are coming out of his ass.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he's like, I'm getting my brothers back by swallowing you whole.
But like, okay, so in these paintings that you see by these guys, like, they do depictions of like hell and stuff like that as if they are like strange carnivals made out of like people and stuff. Like, there would be like, you know, almost like a kind of like a Studio Ghibli sort of thing if like, you know, everyone was absolutely like off their tits.
Yeah.
But like, you know, there's one like depiction of like this kind of tent that's made out of like a person who's stretched their mouth out, and then people are going in and out of it and stuff like that. And there's loads of people being tortured and all sorts of things all over the place. Like, this influence that he's saying he's got, I didn't get that from the film.
No.
It's never reached that level. And he was kind of inspired by it, sure, but he never got to show that side.
But maybe with the deleted stuff, maybe it was a little bit more like that. And, you know, Paramount panicked, and they were like, people won't get it.
Yeah, that's probably it. It's like, what the fuck are we watching? What is this? Yeah, I mean, like, it is a shame. And I think if they do end up making that TV series about this, which they have hopefully done, it's between Paramount and Prime Video. Prime Video has a good track record of just making stuff.
Prime will let them do what they want.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
You want a tiny man to go in someone's phallic penis and then burst out? Yeah, we'll do it. So I trust Prime more than Paramount with it, to be honest.
Yeah, hopefully so. I think the time will tell, though, because, you know,
I think it'll be heavily reliant on visual effects, which I think will kind of ruin it, though.
Yeah,
it needs to be practical.
But I don't know. It's something like you can't necessarily guarantee that it's going to happen. To be honest with you, it's been advertised that it's going to be made, but then there's been but that was like 2020, and it's like 5 years later. Like, is it even in production? I've not heard anything else since then. But yeah, like, you know, it has so much scope to be more than that, and to get that level of sort of like weirdness. But like, you know, it just, because it's feeding off people's fears, and it's just following that process of like, well, what would people be able to fathom and stuff, rather than, you know, like swifts like being shot out of a guy's arse while some sort of anthropomorphic creature.
Let's just make that film.
Yeah, they should. But again, like, I just feel like as an audience, we're more ready for it, and I think that executive producers and stuff like that, if it's got enough like marketing hype behind it, would perhaps just trust the process and let people make a weirder film.
Yeah, you need to get Phil Tippett in it, really.
Yeah,
because Mad God very much had that level of gross disgustingness.
This is what I kept thinking when I was watching it. It's like, because we've done another episode, everyone, where we like looked at Mad God, which is a film by renowned stop motion and visual effects artist Phil Tippett. And yeah, that felt like a chaotic hellscape.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously, like, you're only there for a moment, and that would push the boundaries of like budget like to insane levels.
Yeah.
Like the problem is, obviously, because so much of their budget has gone into the actual ship and the stuff that we've been raving about, what's left for the depictions of hell and stuff?
There are tricks to show a little bit, but emphasize a lot.
Yeah, I think they have done that.
Yeah,
like there's a famous there's famous like points in time where directors have had to past the deadline, past like having any budget, they still need to actually like film some other scenes. So for example, part of Steven Spielberg's Jaws was filmed in someone's swimming pool. Part of Predator, which is in my top 5 films of all time, part of that is filmed in Arnold Schwarzenegger's house with pot plants that he's running through and stuff. There's moments like that. And actually with this film, they went over time and obviously over budget. And so Paul Anderson, to actually create those final scenes with all of the craziness going on and stuff, they were afterthoughts, and they were actually, if I remember correctly, they were doing them like on the weekends on their free time to actually get that done as well.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like at this point in time, like Paul Anderson essentially made Mortal Kombat, the original Mortal Kombat film from 1995, and decided to do this just so that he could keep the momentum going. But like throughout all of the behind the scenes, you get the impression that he's like a kid in a candy store. Like he is enjoying every part of this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So what are we doing next week?
What are we doing next week? I'm not even going to fucking talk about what we're doing next week, Tom, because I gave you a moment to say some shit about Event Horizon, and I'm just going, the door's locked, mate. Okay, we're going to continue talking about Event Horizon.
Well, maybe I don't want to, right? Maybe I'm out of gas. Maybe we've been doing this for too long.
No.
Right?
Do you want me to bring the sirens back? Okay.
Okay, so my final thoughts on Event Horizon.
Yeah.
Well, I think we summed it up, right? Like, it's a limited film, but I think with the scope of what they had, they did well.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see more in the world, but actually, I'm not interested overly in the director's version. I want someone new to come and cut their teeth on this story. And if that's a new film that kind of with producers that are a little bit less scared to kind of push the boundaries, or whether that be a TV show where it goes more into the alternative thing. I want to learn more, but I'm fine with the film being what it is.
Yeah.
Because it's a good film.
Who would you have direct? Wes Anderson?
No. Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright.
Let's see what he'd do.
Yeah. It's going to have Simon Pegg in there at some point,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah. He's going to play another engineer like he did in Star
Martin
Trek.
Scorsese, he's got a good track record at the moment, hasn't he?
Well, it will definitely be a 2-hour film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he just do that now. Yeah. My closing thoughts on it. I mean, like, it's a shame that we haven't been able to talk about some of the other things. Like, there's some really interesting elements of the production design, which was my favourite part about it. The ship is shaped like a cross. That's the first thing I mentioned. I sort of noticed in the film, and also a lot of the Gothic imagery, which in a practical sense, I really don't understand. Because, like, if you're like engineering something and you're putting spikes on doors and stuff like that,
Yes, so silly.
what's that about? But like, it's for us, the audience, not for the actual
the
people.
meat grinder tunnel, and I was like, God, this looks cool, but this is stupid.
This is fucking dangerous. I would not walk through this thing.
Yeah.
Everything's got spikes on it, but no one got impaled by a spike.
Yeah, absolutely missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Yeah. There's people in that big spherical room. There's people like being flung right, left, and centre, and those points are there, and never anyone gets skewered.
But then in the safe bridge, blood everywhere.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
But again, it's that whole idea of like bringing an art direction to the production design, because it was actually based on Notre Dame Cathedral.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah. And what's interesting, another thing to take from this is, if you like this film, or if you like Dead Space, there is definite link there, because one has influenced the other, very much so. And you can get that from Event Horizon. When you see the ship's like front, it's literally just the spaceship, a space helmet, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's pretty much that, isn't it? Yeah. But yeah, okay, all right. We need to decide on a film to watch next. But what are we podcasting?
We're going to delve into our deepest fears. So if you want to feel some existential dread, and you want to get to know us more, next week we're going to be talking about our own fears.
And we are not going to do any research. It's not going to be an episode where we're just going to, well, in culture, fear has been
so
this.
you say, and then you're like, so there's this god of death. And I'm like, oh, he's got me.
No, Guaranteed, no research.
Okay.
Absolutely raw dogging it. And then I was thinking, you don't have a chance to change it. If I say a film, we're doing it, and that's that.
Yeah.
Because it's recorded.
I'm actually the submissive here. Like, this is fully led by Carl.
So I figured because in this there was cannibalism and the idea
Here we go.
The idea of like people like tearing each other's flesh apart and stuff like that. This would be a perfect opportunity for us to look at Ravenous.
Sure. Let's go.
Do you even know what that film is?
No, it sounds disgusting.
You'll enjoy it. Anything with Robert Carlyle in is
Oh,
a treat.
love that. Yeah, great.
Good stuff. All right then. Until next time.
See you later.
Goodbye. Thanks for listening. Here's a disclaimer. We are not experts. We can easily get things wrong in an episode. Our intention is to explore and open up the possibilities for further exploration. Come find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. We would love some interaction. Also, if you can consider supporting us on Patreon, that would help a bunch. Search for 2, that's number 2, Strange Men Pod, all one word. Until next time, keep it strange.